Romance at a glance. Romance at a glance.
What you say now?
Romance at a glance.
Go ahead, girl.
Yo, yo, yo. Welcome to Romance at a Glance. I'm your host, Bridget. With me, as always, is Shawnee. Hello, my friend.
Hello, Bridget. I'm here for you, Bridget.
I'm here for you all the time. What's happening in the land of Shawnee?
Well, our coloring book is going fast. I wasn't expecting that, and I'm so excited about that. If you haven't gotten your hands on our little Chibby's all year long coloring book, it's called Color Me Romance.
Color Me Romance.
It's so sweet. It's good for any ages. Obviously, we made it for adults, but anybody can color it. And it makes me really excited that people are as excited as I am about it. And if you want to support the show in any other way, you can buy the coloring book or you can head over to Patreon and you can become our patron. And guess what? We're going to be watching the Bridgertons together, a watch along in December. And that is going to be hella fire, let me tell you right now.
So fun.
Every time we do a watch along with our patrons, it's so fun. So
I love the watch alongs because we're friends and you support the show and we love that about you. But also we just want to get to know you and hang out and talk about romance and watching movies together. It is not a quiet affair, you guys. It is me and Shawnee talking the entire time about the romance, the costumes, the lighting, the kissing, the tension. We pause it sometimes. We rewind for some good scenes. Mm-hmm. It is a really interactive experience, and it is so fun. So we really hope you join us at patreon.com/romance at a glance. Remember, we are explicitly awesome. So you actually have to type it in or hit that link.
Woo! All right, Bridget, who are we talking to today?
I thought this episode was really interesting because they are our second writing duo. We did talk to Christina and Lauren from Christina Lauren. But they have been friends for decades and writing for a long, long time. And May Archer and Lucy Lennox actually started writing together pretty recently. And they have solo book careers as authors as well. And they met and they just kind of liked each other's vibe. And they're like, oh, maybe we'll just dabble and do a novella. And then that turned into a novel, which then turned into a series, which then turned into all of these great Licking Thicket books. So it was a really fun conversation.
It was super fun because, like, you could see how they kind of finish each other's sentences. They each know when the other one is the better person to answer a question, and they deferred and whatnot. And it reminded me, Christina Lauren also, but they really reminded me of us because that's kind of really how we are. Like, one is more methodical,
and one of them is the more like straight creative, like a head up in the artistic clouds of awesome.
Yeah.
Even though they're both very artistic. Obviously.
Yeah, and they're both very awesome. It's just like they complement each other, you know? It's like a yin and yang. And so I really love it because that's how Bridget and I are. And it's so funny sometimes because I forget things and Bridget reminds me because she already knows that I have forgotten. And I love you for it.
Guys, I'm going to give you a little BTS on the podcast. We just hired an intern. What up, intern? How you doing? And we're so excited about it. And Shawnee was talking about something, and I was like, let's be honest. I'm going to be managing the interns. And we were dying for like 10 minutes.
I was like, you ain't wrong. You ain't wrong.
Guys, on that note, let's get into it. Let's listen to these two little cherubs talk amazing, amazing stuff about writing and making money writing and just everything. It was awesome.
They were very forthcoming with their information, and that's always helpful. We are big advocates of women supporting women and of women sharing their numbers so that we can all come up. And let me tell you, they're about it. So they put their money where their mouth is and, you know, their hard work where their mouth is. So, you ready to get into this, Bridget?
I'm ready. Let's get this shit poppin'. Hi, you guys. Thank you so much for being here on the podcast.
Thanks for having us.
I'm Bridget, and this is Shawnee. And
I'm Lucy. I'm May.
We are so excited about this because your book was actually recommended to us by some peeps on Instagram. And we're always looking for a diversity in our books, not only of, you know, authors of color, characters of color, but also different pairings. So we try to always make sure that we have male-male pairings, we have menage pairings, we have, you know, we try to every season make sure that we're, you know, putting stuff in the mix. And we had a bunch of people who were like, oh my God, you have to read their books. So we're so excited.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
I am wondering, like, how it is that you write together a book, because it is a lot of writing, obviously. It's a lot of words. And how you keep it tonally one thing. Does one of you get like the final pass, or is that the editor who really makes sure that it all blends into one voice? Or how does that all fit?
Neither. Yeah. No, it just happened like that, actually, weirdly. We have pretty similar styles anyway, which is one of the reasons that we wanted to write together.
Yeah.
And we're friends too. And we plotted out the book together in advance. So definitely there were no surprises where like all of a sudden they ended up on a deserted island and I was like, what? How am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do now? So we had worked it out a lot in advance, and we just have naturally similar styles, I think.
Yeah, I think that's the key, because I've collaborated with 2 other authors before, and in all 3 different collaborative series that I've done, I work with the authors differently. And you've collaborated with somebody before too, and it's so interesting. You have to find your own way. But for us, one of the things that we do that we've found works for us, that kind of took us a little while to figure out that this works really well for us, and this probably helps with that consistency. We alternate chapters, and our books alternate POVs. So one of us takes one POV and one takes another. And
that's so interesting.
Yeah. But, every chapter has both in it. So you don't actually end up writing just one character, obviously. What we do is, like, let's say it's my day to write, I'll write my chapter. And if it takes a day or 2 or 3, when I'm ready, we FaceTime each other and I'll send it over. She'll read it while I'm watching her reactions. And so you get to see that reaction live. And then you also get to see, like if I'm reading her chapter and it makes me think of something, I can say it right then. I can say, oh God, we totally forgot to do this, or, oh, this would be a great place to add this, or, oh my gosh, what if we made this new side character that you came up with do this, this, and this. So it's like this live interaction at each end of a chapter point. And then when we're done with that and we sort of make notes about what we want to change, we also go through our outline and say, okay, what's next? So let's say I just finished a chapter. We just went through my chapter. Tomorrow, she's going to start the next chapter. We go through what did we outline for that chapter? Does that still work? And what are some fun ideas to kind of like flesh that out?
All those callbacks that you want to do like throughout the book, we try to remember to include those, and 2 minds are better than one.
Way, way better. Yeah.
We definitely find that, because me and Shawnee, I mean, if you listen to our podcast ever, I'll be like, Shawnee, what was that thing we were talking about? And she'll be like, I don't know. And we'll be like, people on Instagram, tell us what we were talking about 8 episodes ago. And people comment and be like, you were talking about this. I'm like, oh, thank God you guys are paying attention.
Oh, thank God for the readers. You're like, what was the name of the farmer at the feed store? They're like, it was Bill. Right.
Absolutely.
I'm very.
Oh, go ahead, Shawnee.
Oh, so I'm actually curious why you guys chose to write male romance. When I used to produce for Audible, and I would see a lot of books come through, and there were just there weren't a lot of male, but I am seeing more and more pop up. And so I'm curious as to why specifically you were like, oh, let's do this, because it's kind of cool.
Yeah, it is really cool. You want me to go?
Okay. I know you've got a good answer for this one.
I actually started off worried about being in that space. I'm not an own voices gay male romance author. So I started off writing male female contemporary romance just because I was too scared to take over anybody's room in the genre. But I also didn't realize at the time, I don't think, that a huge portion of the readership of male romance is actually women like me, middle-aged, straight, there's cis women. Yeah. And so that's when I, started to think more and more about it, but I still sort of didn't feel like I had permission, which is kind of an odd concept. But my sister is an author also. She's a YA author. And she had a good friend at the time who was a big Regency romance author who I just think is very smart and, has lots of experience in the industry. And she said, if that's what she's reading, you should, that's what she should write. And, be respectful, do your research, and and make sure that you're also amplifying own voice as authors while you're doing it. And I think now, so as soon as I had that sort of permission from on high, which is super stupid looking back on it, I should not have needed that. I could go on. You have to be careful. I could talk about this topic forever. But I think this is a very powerful genre for a lot of reasons. I think it's very empowering to obviously gay men, because they're getting to see themselves on the page. We have a lot of extremely passionate gay male fans and readers who are so grateful that because women like us write in the genre, there's so much more supply of stories in the genre. And that is not an angle I thought about before. Is it for you?
And representation really matters. Like having those stories out there, having a wide variety of stories out there, like everything from gay Hallmark, which is kind of what we do, to, all the other different varieties of romance that there are. It's really important. And we also, because we do have a lot of female middle-aged readers, I think it normalizes something that should very much be normal, but maybe they don't have that in their day-to-day lives, depending upon where they live or how they grew up or whatever. So this it's accessible to them.
I think kind of what you're getting at too is there are a lot of sheltered people like me who don't necessarily have, or like I was growing up, who didn't have a lot of exposure to different people who are different than us. And when you can have a book boyfriend who is different than you are, and you can get into their hearts and minds, that really builds empathy. I had a neighbor who early on in my writing career, which I've only been doing this for 4 years, was just extremely, sheltered, extremely sort of like, her life was very narrow in a lot of different ways. And because she knew me personally, wanted to try my books. And I'm like, I didn't think she was very sensitive about, any LGBT topics. And, but she read my books and it was a game changer for her. Like and I think that's hopefully going to change the way she is when she goes to the polls. Hopefully it's going to change the way she is as a parent. Hopefully it's going to change the way
as a neighbor,
as a neighbor and a friend, and in her church or whatever she does in her life. And that's something that a lot of us feel very strongly about. And again, that's sort of like, it's not amplifying own voices, but it is adding to the messaging by growing the genre and reaching out these different stories to different audiences.
Yeah, we had a great interview with Suzanne Brockman, and she was talking about her journey of writing from, I died. I seriously died. You guys, I freaked out. Before we started, I was like, Shani, I'm freaking out. I don't know what to do. And I was like, I'm going to hold it together while we're interviewing, but I want you to know I'm freaking out inside. Anyway, so she talked about her journey from, the 90s writing and how she had a random side character who is gay, but had no subplot, no romance, no partner, no husband, nothing. It was just mentioned that they happened to be gay. And they were like, you have to take that out. And so her goal was every single book to force them to tell her to take it out and just put a little bit more until finally Jules Cassidy got his whole line.
He gets the movie star at the end.
Yeah. And it, one thing she talked about, which is what you guys are saying, is it's so important for white women to write people who are different from them, because you guys writing more and people buying your books means that, oh, hey, there's space. So other authors will start to write more and realize, oh, people will buy your books.
I really
and
hope
it'll make publishers see hey, people are buying these books. Let's publish more of these books.
There's a market here. Yeah. So now there can be space for all of the own voices people who.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Because if there's no, sorry to interrupt, but if there's no, if you can't prove there's a market, then those people can never write an own voices book. If there isn't, someone's got to start the churn. Yeah. And I think it's awesome. We love these books. So.
We want to be really respectful of that, of own voices, and of not taking a spot that could be somebody else's spot who is own voices. But, at the same time, I think there's room for all of us.
Yeah. Yeah. We've noticed, just since we've been doing this too, I was talking to a film producer who, has noticed, and I'm sure you guys have seen, that Lifetime and Hallmark are now talking about actually producing LGBT content, which they have not really done before. And when I was talking to a producer who was optioning one of my books, he was flabbergasted when I told him what a huge readership there was of my demographic in this genre, because what that means is he now can go to HBO and say, it's not just gay men who are going to watch this movie. There is a huge, following of these stories and these romance stories, and why that is a whole nother conversation. That's the conversation I can have for hours. But because we're growing, hopefully, this space in ebooks, it might also grow it in other media areas like film or television or all kinds of other things.
And like Lucy alluded to earlier, like by putting forward the idea that love is love and making that much more real for a bunch of people, hopefully they're going to vote that way at the polls. And
yeah, absolutely. First of all, congratulations on getting your book optioned. That's very exciting.
Oh, thank you. Well, we'll see. I'm trying to keep the expectations in the basement.
You should, because we're in LA and
my sister sold hers years ago and nothing has happened yet. So,
but just even getting it optioned is still very, very exciting. So awesome. I wonder what you like, if you had to choose like a style of your book on screen, would you want it to feel more like a Hallmark? Would you want it to have a little more HBO where they can get a little nasty? Like, where would you want it to fall in the spectrum of TV?
That's a very good question. I think for accessibility's sake and reaching the most people, I would want it to be Hallmarky. Because I think, first of all, it's a good question, but at the same time, it would be a little truer to how we write it if it had that edge of theme. I wouldn't necessarily want it to be arty or gritty, because I write, like both of us write Hallmarky pretty much. We write Hallmark with steam.
Well, maybe it could be like Netflix in the middle, you get a little steam, but it's still clean.
Lifetime After Dark.
Lifetime After Dark. Yeah. Ooh, that's a good name of a channel.
Hallmark After Dark. Yeah. We'll introduce a new
Hallmark After Dark.
The new channel.
That would be fun. First of all, me and Shawnee love the steam. We're here for the steam. So this whole season, the reason your book was recommended to us was because Shawnee, I was gifting her a season of very steamy books. That was my goal.
Awesome.
So, but they also had to fit into the holiday theme. So we did some paranormals around the, October time. We did some Navy SEALs. That's how we talked to Suzanne Brockman, did some Navy SEAls for Veterans Day that we went into. You guys are in the down home country boys, small town sort of romance. And then we're rolling into the Christmases. So I was like, you guys, I need a male romance set in a small town that has a lot of steam. Go. And you guys came up.
Pretty much her entire back catalog and my entire back catalog.
That's both of us. That's exactly what we do. Yeah,
exactly. What is like when you're reading? Are you into a high steam level, or it varies?
It definitely varies, but in general, I'm into a pretty high steam level. In fact, I'm into a higher steam level when I'm reading than I think I am when I'm writing.
Yeah. I used to be steamier when I'm writing than I am now. I definitely notice that I'm writing less steam, not less steam overall, but less sex scenes, basically.
Or they're more emotional.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah, I like to read steam. But like right now I'm reading Penny Reed, MF, and they're not super steamy. And I love them for different reasons. You know what I mean? I love them for the humor and the characterization and the way she interweaves all these stories together and stuff. So I guess it depends on what you're reading. And then we have a lot of romantic suspense that we like too, and author friends who are really good at that, where you're willing to sacrifice some of the steam to get those plot elements and the suspense, the tension.
Shawnee is not into romantic suspense. I'm trying my hardest to get her into it. And she's like too straightforward. And she's like, why would you ever eat someone out while you're on a mission. And I was like, why not? I'm like,
For fun, because it's really fun.
It's true.
She's like, if there's people shooting, I'm not going to have sex with you. And I'm like, yes, you are showing the adrenaline.
The sales on my one romantic suspense novel.
I am hyper literal, so like the details get me, and so as soon as there's like something that doesn't quite make sense or whatever, I hyper focus on that, and then it ruins the rest of the book for me because I'm like, but that doesn't make sense. And once something doesn't, it's just like
Shawnee, I'm telling you, danger and sex go together, hand in hand, my friend.
Adrenaline is spiking.
Listen, when I read a romantic suspense book, it's the exact same as when I watch like a horror movie. I'm out loud yelling at the book. I'm like, why? I don't understand. Why are you doing that? Like, go back.
Yeah.
Yeah, she doesn't get it. But I'm like, Shawnee.
It's hard to write both. I mean, the people who can write both successfully, I mean, balancing those plots, what you're trying to write romance and steam, and then there's plot happening with a mystery and bad guys, that is hard because you can't actually be shooting while you're having sex necessarily.
You have to
like you have to figure out where they'll be and how they'll have a moment alone that's safe enough. And for sure.
Stuck in the closet hiding from the bad guys. Do you have a condom?
There's one Suzanne Brockman where they're literally like in a jungle. Like they jumped out of a plane and they're literally in a jungle and they're like, let's do it. Yeah.
And I didn't have any
and like
problem with that.
Life affirming?
What's more life affirming? That's what I'm saying.
I'm just waiting for someone to write a sensible romance suspense, where they're like, hey, I really want to fuck you, but we're getting shot at. So here's what we're going to do.
Put a pin in that.
Put a pin in it.
You need to try Alice Winters. She writes MM that is hilarious. And it's like that. It's like, can you just hold on while I get off of this electric fence and
then we'll make out.
Then we'll find time.
So you guys plot out each book, but for this series, did you plot out the whole series ahead of time or just the first book and then get into the second one?
What series?
Yeah. We had wanted to write together for a while, but we've both
had situations where we were committed to collabs that we had learned that's very difficult to juggle with a solo career.
Yes.
So we were scared of getting into a commitment with a collaboration before knowing how it was going to work and blah, blah, blah. And so we both were like, okay, but it's only one book. No more.
It's a standalone.
That's it.
And so we billed it as a standalone, and there was no number one on the cover, like for a reason. That was not a marketing ploy. That was poor planning on our part, because we really suck at writing standalones, it turns out. So, and we had a lot of fun, and also because it's COVID times. Yeah, this like the collaborative experience between it was so much fun. It was so much fun, and we weren't expecting it to be fun and fast like it was at all, and we weren't expecting it to be this easy. Like we wrote both books, not together. So for each book, it took us 5 weeks.
Oh my gosh.
And then that's with, like I can work on my solo on the day she's working on her
but
collab.
We didn't even, for the first book, we were like, oh, not my day. I'll be over here reading. I'll let you know if I find anything good today. And then, so we basically had like a vacation. And then like at the end of the night, when she would be writing all day, at the end of the night, I'd get to read a new chapter of a Lucy Lennox book. And it was like the most fun ever. And then I got to write it's
like Christmas morning, because when you're writing with one of your favorite authors and you you spend all day in your recliner with your book while your favorite author is writing a chapter for you.
Just for you.
It's the best thing ever. But no, so what happened was I feel like we accidentally hit magic with Licking Thicket, the town and the characters. And it was so cornball and so sort of over the top with the humor, but it had so much heart that we loved the world that we created. And we didn't realize necessarily that it was going to be that way. And so when we met the people of Licking Thicket, we didn't want to be done with Licking Thicket.
Mm-hmm.
And so
great town name, by the way.
Yeah. Especially if you've ever been to Tennessee and know that it is very realistic.
There's actually there's a place called Licking, which is kind of where we got the thing. And then Thicket is just,
yeah,
you know,
in the thicket.
It goes.
So we knew okay, we'll probably write another one, but it was planned sort of like down the road, down the road after we do our very serious solo book releases. Are very important.
We were like 3 chapters in, and Lucy was like, because Lucy's definitely the busier one of us. She's got a bunch of irons in the fire, a bunch of things going on. So she was like, what if we also did a Christmas novella? Like just just one Christmas novella. And I was like, that's amazing. Let's totally do it. We'll
Christmas in the thicket.
Fall, Christmas in the thicket. So we're going to intro one little bonus
novella.
One guy. And then we're like, well, what if we don't want to do him? Maybe we could like introduce like this other, give ourselves like options. And then everybody was like, I need so-and-so's book. And then I need this other guy's book. And people that aren't even gay, people that
one of them has a straight brother. We're like, well, he needs a story.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so fun because we just for clarity's sake, we are not doing a holiday story. We changed it. It's a
New Year's story now.
Yeah,
very different.
But we and that we're doing that specifically to like get in, to do it as part of a big promo, like a Prolific Works promo. But we, because we're together this week, we outlined the short, and then we outlined book 3, the full length book 3. So there will be 4 in the series by the end of February.
And that's it.
Yeah. So that's it. Drawing the line.
Sure.
Yes. Sounds like it, you guys. Sounds like that's it.
But tell them the story about how so we weren't going to write it yet.
What? Oh, and then
we're just working on our solos, minding our own business.
And my solo was my most recent solo, which is the solo I was working on in June. Also, interestingly enough, it just won't come. It is just not as fun.
It's like pulling teeth.
It's not as fun to write.
It's really
alone.
good though.
It's not as fun to write alone. It's not as fun to write alone as it is to write with a friend and to get immediate feedback and to see her laugh and to be like, whatever. So it took, after months and months of toiling alone, she also started to have a little bit of a moment where she was like, pulling teeth with her collab, and we were like, we could just write that.
I sent her a picture. No.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Did I send you a picture? Did I just messaged her because we talk every day, on Messenger. And I was like, by the way, Diesel was the character who's going to be in the next book, the book that came out yesterday. I was like, by the way, and he owns a junkyard. That's all we knew about him from book 1, really. I said, by the way, Diesel has chickens. And he loves them.
I was like, oh my God, yes, he does. And this is mostly going to be a book about chickens, isn't it? And she was like, yes. And she sent me a picture of like a chicken, the Pullet Palace.
It's a palace for chickens.
It's like a thing that you can build in your backyard that's like better than like
home.
A she shed, better than it's better than your own home. It has like electricity. It's whatever. And we were like, yes, he does. Yes, this big tattooed
biker dude.
Junkyard dealer. Right. Keeps chickens in a gigantic Pullet Palace.
And he's vegetarian.
He's a vegetarian.
Because he's so in love with his chicken.
He feeds them organic feed and that kind
of
thing. Yeah. So
we started going back, and we were having so much fun just sort of talking about when we write it, later. And finally we're like,
it started the allure
maybe
of the
we
shiny.
Should just take a quick break from our solos and start this. Just really quick.
And it was
5 weeks. It was 5 weeks.
Compared to how long I worked on that solo without being able to. Yeah. And it did. I mean, now the solo's almost done. And yours?
Yeah. Almost we're probably at the same spot.
But
anyway, it came out yesterday, and it's at 35 in the store right now.
Woohoo! Good for you guys.
Really exciting.
Just a side note, I that whole chicken palace thing is not that far-fetched.
I know.
Because my dad, now he's not a big biker dude, but my dad went on Craigslist and asked for people's like extra building materials that they, didn't need anymore. You know how you can go pick up like stuff from sites that they're not using.
Yeah.
So he got all these Mexican tile roofing, all these beautiful glass doors and this stuff, and then built a chicken coop that looks so nice.
Like better than the house.
Yes, it looks better than our house. And I'm always joking. And it's got electricity. It's got these double. And he planted an avocado tree in there. It's like completely like contained or whatever. And then he treats those chickens like they're his children.
Well, so that's what we're getting in our reader groups right now. Yeah. It's really resonating with people because they're sharing pictures of their chickens, and it's super fun. Like when you have something like that, like the readers are loving it. And like we've pinned a bunch of really fun chicken stuff to the Pinterest board for this book. And it's been fun to use it in marketing. And it's just fun. And like right now, and part of the reason we didn't really drop everything, but part of the reason we decided to go ahead and go for it is because like this year is unpleasant.
Yes.
And so
it is tough.
Having fun at work for us is amazing, but also giving the readers so much laughter. Like one person said they had to read it with their knees closed, which we couldn't figure out at first, but we thought maybe she was going to pee her pants.
Yeah.
But they're laughing when they're reading it. And like this year, especially, that's amazing.
Yeah. I think we all want just a little bit of joy, a little bit of uncomplicated enjoyment, so the books are like basically almost no angst in them, and for a reason, on purpose, because there's enough angst out there.
I'm excited about
there's still
that.
Plenty of emotion though.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because we definitely love romance for the reason that most of us do, which is that we get to escape and we don't want to have necessarily, unless you're choosing it on purpose. But like most of the time, like we want to have a romp. Like I want to have a fun. I want to dip into the world. I want you to tell me this wonderful story wherever, and I know it's going to be happy at the end. And with maybe a little bit of complication sprinkled in. Yeah, it's just going to be a good time. So that's exciting to hear.
A lot of like what we've been talking about recently is two things. One, having some sort of trigger warnings on books, right? So that like when you read a book, you know what you're in for. We kept reading a bunch of books where people had sexual assault or things in their past and stuff like that. And that stuff really happens. But sometimes when I read a romance novel, like I don't want to go into that headspace,
and those books were marketed very fluffy. Like they had illustrated covers and they had like the descriptions didn't really allude to any of that. And so we were like reading the book and all of a sudden we were like, whoa, 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 whoa.
So like sometimes I was saying like in books, everything always leads to murder, right? So like they have a relationship between these two people, but some outside force is trying to murder somebody. And I'm always like, why is the most extreme? Like, why is that the worst? And I'm like,
because you wouldn't have bought it if they were trying to audit somebody.
But sometimes I just want to see the things that are going wrong, very like in the relationship, the things that they're fighting about just internally each other or trying to navigate because they do have an arranged marriage. Now they have to try to navigate what that looks like. And I don't need a murder on top of it. You know what I mean? Like
it's nice to have a problem that can be solved in a really finite amount of space by a bunch of zany townspeople pulling together to bring these two chuckleheads together. And like, wouldn't it be great if that was the entirety of the problems that face us,
I feel like one reason I love reading about small town romances because I grew up in just outside of Chicago, but like in a very inner suburb, so very city-like. I went to school in Minneapolis. I live in Los Angeles. Like I've never lived in a small town in my entire life, except for like in Africa when I was living there for a hot minute, but like never in like an American small town. But when I read these, I always think like, oh, how comforting would it be to have like little busybody down the road to help me with my problems, or like the diner guy Joe to like sit me at the same booth as this guy that he's trying to set me up with, or like what? Like
that's what we plotted in one of our upcoming ones. Is like getting the townspeople to like push them.
Yeah. I just think that would be so fun.
So nosy. Yeah. So nosy.
We get a lot of readers who are like, I live in a small town and it is nothing like that. So it's very, that's fine.
Yeah. It's just, but I'll most likely never live in a small town. And, although who knows, COVID times, you never know. But, I like the idea of that. I like the idea of everyone like busybody up in people's BS.
Yes. But like in a good way. Only in a positive way.
In a positive way.
I'm curious though, like when you guys are deciding, well, one, how do you decide what the story is that you're going to write? And then like two, like what character, like when you come up with one character and their personality, how do you write a character that's going to mesh well with them? Like what do you think about in that process?
I think for us, for this series now, we've ended up doing a lot of opposites attract to play with that, play with those challenges. So, having a very sort of neurotic, buttoned up character.
You guys, Lucy just pointed at me.
Super stretch for my
like a goody two shoes.
Yeah.
And having that kind of character up against, the sort of like laissez-faire motorcycle dude who, is go along, get along, and doesn't necessarily need to keep a calendar because he'll probably remember. And if he doesn't, it's fine. That creates comedy, and so we definitely did that. And this book that just came out yesterday is very much a priss, who's very, very,
he's very well intentioned and not prissy at all.
So he gets very flustered and he says something he thinks is wrong in the very first scene and to the other MC, and he's very embarrassed by it. And so he doesn't know the guy, but afterwards he's like, and this is the South, remember, this is Tennessee. I'm going to bring him an apology casserole.
Oh.
And because that's good manners. And so he finds out who this guy is, and the guy is the owner of the junkyard. And so he pulls up in front of his house with an apology casserole. Well, that interaction goes wrong. And so he's very, very flustered because that is not how this was all supposed to go. And so the junkyard owner, meanwhile, has inherited a baby because that's the trope we were writing. And he needs kind of a husband to help make him look more stable than he is.
Ideally a
neurotic buttoned up goody two shoes.
Stable calendar using
exactly.
Partner. Yeah.
You probably can't guess which one of us wrote which character. But it's so fun because when he arrives to give this apology casserole to this stranger, the stranger is standing with his lawyer and he says, "Hey, honey, you're home," kind of thing. And Parrish, who's standing there holding this apology casserole, is like, that is not how I expected this to go down. And so he sort of stumbles and mumbles and makes an ass out of himself again. And so now he needs an apology casserole for his apology casserole. And it's so fun to do that fish out of water.
Yeah. He talks to himself like he'll be in a conversation with another character and he'll talk over them. I know what you're going to say. Yeah. I know what you're going to say.
And you're right. It is. And meanwhile, the other character hasn't gotten a word in edgewise.
Right. And so, So long story short, there's a lot of opposites attract. I think all of them.
And that's what I was realizing when they were asking the question.
Even the one, like the next one. Well, okay. So the short story that we're writing now, the novella, is literally enemies to lovers. And then the one after that is best friends to lovers, but they're still opposites.
One is a doctor and one is a farmer.
Yep, a cow farmer.
Yeah, and they're but they've been best friends forever.
Yeah.
And so I think in terms of thinking about
have they both been in love with each other the whole time, but they both
no, one of them is straight. One of them is straight.
Okay.
Yeah. And
wait.
So he thinks
he straight-ish.
Yeah. Well, he's never had an opportunity. Like he's never been in love or attracted to another guy before. So this is kind of it's never
really occurred to him to look at this. It's sort of the concept of being, pansexual, where falling in love with the person leads to the sexual attraction. And so for him, it has never really occurred to him before that he could have a physical relationship with the person who's always been his person. And when he finally sort of like opens his eyes and starts to realize, I could also have this man is everything I've ever wanted, except he can't be my wife, and he's an idiot. I mean, the book is called Idiots because they're both idiots. And it's
but finding that you're fluid, that your attraction is sort of fluid, and it's not a static thing. It can change, or even more accurately, it can develop. Like you haven't experienced the total everything that you're going to experience in your life. So to identify one way when you're like 20 doesn't mean that once you have a more breadth of experience when you're 30, you're not going to be more open to different experiences. So it's not something that has to be static.
That's very true. Shawnee came out as kink last year. And she always kind of knew it was like maybe in the background, but like, you know, we're in our 30s and now she's like embraced it and taken classes and like got a kink partner. And so we 100% agree. Like things can evolve. They don't have to stay what you think.
And I think in terms of us feeling more open to come out about all the different facets of our sexuality, I was talking about this the other day, like however you feel about 50 Shades as a book, to me, I'm 46. To me, 50 Shades of Grey being sold in the grocery store was like, all of a sudden it was so mainstream.
Yep.
And like I said, regardless of how you feel about the book or about how it handled kink, like whatever, but in terms of it being so sexual and women being so open about reading it and or liking it and or hating it, it got women in my generation talking about sex and being more sex positive and open about their own sexuality. I noticed a massive, massive difference in my generation. We're the same age. In terms of being able to talk about it, to think more about it, to be more open, which if you can't talk about it and if you can't talk to your friends about it, if you're embarrassed by it or in the closet about it or quiet about it, then you can't, then it's so much harder to research. It's so much harder you could have one of your best friends could be into kink and you don't know because we weren't talking about it.
One of your sexual partners could be into kink and you might not even feel like you can bring it up with your spouse. I definitely know somebody who felt empowered to do that in her marriage because of the proliferation of various books. So
and you're right. It wasn't just that book.
I definitely agree. Cause I feel like, like Bridget said, like I always knew, but they actually became like a breaking point. Like quite literally a moment where I was like, if I can't express this way, like I feel like I'm going to break. Do you know what I mean? Like having a mental breakdown. And honestly, that just took time. That took time of not being able to express that way to get to a point of so much frustration that you break. And it took till I was like in my 30s.
And it makes me so sad because I think of all the people throughout history that did break. Because they didn't have easy access to research, easy access to partners, easy access to anything in society that gave them permission to recognize and identify and not feel shamed by that part of themselves.
To live their truth, right? And I mean, I think for a lot of people, especially when we're talking about like this late bisexual awakening kind of a thing, a lot of people think that it's something that they should have dealt with a long time ago or it's unbelievable. But I think
we have a lot of friends of friends who realized much, much later in life. And I think, and like you said, it's not that they didn't know about these parts of themselves. It's just, there's so much involved in claiming something officially and, changing your actions and, I don't know.
Feeling like you have permission.
Yes.
Not even sometimes even having the language to do that or knowing that it's a possibility that like, if you're attracted to a guy, you can also be attracted to a woman, like not even knowing that you don't have to choose, that it's okay to, So, I mean,
or that you don't have to choose either.
Right.
I mean, that's the other thing. That's one of the things I talk to my kids about all the time because my husband is really good about language, but the one area he's still not is that default,
of a binary.
The default of being in love with someone or finding a partner in your life, period. Like that default of like, adults live in pairs, or you will find somebody one day rather than you will be happy. Hopefully you can have a happy life regardless. That may not be something you're interested in.
Just like on a random side note, like I told so I've always considered myself like a lumbersexual in a way where like I love like big guys, hairy guys. The more hair, the more like testosterone, the better. type of thing, plaids, I'm going to cut down a tree. Mm-hmm. And so in my 30s, it hit me like kind of unsuspectingly that now like the K-pop guys that are like very sleek, no hair, like jewelry or whatever. I'm like, ooh, they're doing it for me.
Yeah.
I did not expect that.
Well, that's the other thing. Like I was raised to think you're one thing. That's it. Mm-hmm. Maybe you can label yourself, but then you're labeled for good rather than, you can have different phases in your life where you feel differently about all kinds of things. Yeah. It's not just sexuality or sexual identity or, I mean.
Isn't there a meme about like, it's okay to change your mind about things, but like, did you watch Schitt's Creek?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That whole like, season. I like the wine, not the label kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have 2 little kids. They're 3 and 1. And even with the 3, like since she was born, I'm constantly like, everyone comes over and they say like, one day when you have a boyfriend or you're married, and I'm like, or you have a girlfriend or you are not married. And it's so hard to it's not hard. I mean, it's just what it is, but it's hard to get people in older generations, because my parents are in their 60s and so are my husband's parents. And to like, I like talk to them and I'm like, hey, like we're trying to not make it so that if someday she does like boys or girls or both, or maybe everyone because she's pansexual, or maybe neither. Like, I don't want her to feel like, well, all my life I've been told I should find a husband. And so now this is weird. Like, I want her to just be like, oh yeah, it's chill. Like I like that girl. She's cool. Oh, I like that boy. That's cool. Or like neither. And that's fine too. And it's really, really hard, like pervasive messaging. And one thing I think, I mean, like I, obviously talked about Suzanne Brackman already, but like, I think it was great that I was exposed to so many books because my family is a bunch of readers. Like we read everything all the time, as much as possible. Everyone's swapping books constantly. And we tended to read in the more like fantasy, sci-fi, and romance genres. And those are places where there's a lot more diversity and a lot more different people and different pairings. And I think that really helped me. Yeah. Like, like I had one of my, relatives, she was like, oh, well, I was like in 7th grade. She's like, oh, well, because I was like, you should have a wedding because I wanted to have a party. This is the whole context of this. I just wanted to have a get together. I wanted everyone to come, wanted all of our relatives. So I was like, you should get married. And this is why. Let me tell you my 10-point plan. I was like, do all these things. And she's like, well, I can't get married because I'm gay. And I was like, we can have a celebration of your commitment. And I just like rolled right in. I was like, I'm on the party train. You can't deter me from the party train. Yep. When she was like shocked that I just like, it's not like I didn't care, but I didn't care. It didn't it didn't even occur to me that was a big thing for her to say to me. I was just like, but you could have a commitment ceremony. We could all go. It will still be great. I will make a cake. And I think that like, I'm 33, like that's like, even, we're 13 years apart. I mean, like the messaging is evolving so fast. And I'm so happy that like, my daughter, if one of her relatives or her friends or her parents says it, she'll just be like, yeah, cool. Like you're like, it's so exciting.
Very different. And in the schools, and I live in a very conservative part of Georgia, and it is still just eons better than it was when I was going through school in South Carolina. But that's interesting that you say that, because you know what that makes me think of? When I got really into this genre and I started reading back all the big books from previous years, if you go back before Oberfell, like the proposing to your other MC wasn't an option.
Yeah, that was not your happily ever
after.
Happy
ever after never included a proposal or a wedding or anything in those books. And so you can, if you read a lot in this genre and you're reading back, you can see where that began to change, and it's fascinating. Yeah, it really is, and it's such a reflection of our time. But Oberfell, made changes a lot faster than I was expecting in this country.
Yep.
Wow.
For those perceptions.
How do you guys find like the indie publishing space? Like, did you try submit to traditional publishers all the time? Did you just realize like, hey, I want to control my own thing? You guys both write a lot of books a year versus like maybe a traditional published author might only write 1 or 2.
Not so many this year in the COVID time.
Hey, COVID times has been a cluster. Okay. It has been a cluster.
Everybody. The only reason I have so many is because I collaborate and get people, I sucker people into writing half of my books.
The only reason me and Shawnee are succeeding at this podcast is because when one of us is down, the other person's like, come on, we can keep on keeping on.
That's the truth.
And we have like, I've been calling it COVID grace, right? Everybody this year gets COVID grace.
Yeah.
What, you didn't show up? That's okay. I give you COVID grace.
That's right. We were just talking the other day though, like January 1st, 2021, that COVID grace cannot that's not going to end at the end of this year. I think people
everybody has this false assumption that New Year's is going to change everything.
I think that's freaking hilarious. 1, because you are correct. But 2, once I started saying this, I was like, oh, you're a hot mess, COVID grace. I realized, no, this is just the grace I should be giving people at all times.
Oh, that is so good.
Yeah, that's gonna stay with me.
You're right.
Yeah, you're right.
You're right. Because you know what? It's always COVID.
You don't know what people are dealing with.
COVID is the thing we're all dealing with. So we're all able to give each other grace, but you just don't know when someone else is having their own moment in their own life.
Yeah.
That's not as overt
but in general, you guys both read a lot of books. Most traditional published authors that we talk to have write one, I would say the like really, really prolific ones who are writing constantly, maybe write 3.
Yeah.
But like,
it's
I find that indie authors are writing, pretty comfortably like 2 to 5 books a year.
Comfortably is
not comfortably in your writing.
No,
but I mean,
there's so I never tried to go trad. I have a sister who's traditionally published, and she has been traditionally published for over 10 years. And I have watched her experience, and I knew from all the querying and all the stuff with agents and how long it takes. I knew that side really well, but I also knew the indie side really well because along the way, she had made a ton of author friends who were indie. And so I knew because of what I was going to write, because by the time I decided what I was publishing, I was writing that in that space, in our genre, you don't, at least 4 years ago when I started, it's a little teeny bit different now. You don't go into Barnes & Noble and see a giant gay romance on the front. I mean, red, white, and royal blue, notwithstanding. Yeah. You don't usually go in and see gay romance. There at that time, they weren't even in the romance section of the store. They were in the LGBT studies, which is way back in the corner next to Maps. So that wasn't going to be lucrative the way it is for, somebody like Nora Roberts or Debbie McComber or whatever. So, if you wanted to make money, you needed to try and find ways to cut out the middleman and that kind of thing. And it's so easy. Like if you can have access to the information of how to do it, if you've heard the success stories of people who've done it, that was never a question for me. What about you? You started with MF.
Yeah, I started writing MF with a small publisher, and I think I wanted to go indie even before I had 100% committed. I mean, all I was reading was MM romance, and so that became what I wanted to write also. And so I kind of made the switch to indie when I switched genres too. And I think because I wanted to have more control over the covers on my books. I wanted to have more control over the way that they were priced and the way that they were marketed and that kind of thing. And I think maybe it's different if you're going with a big trad publisher. I mean, not in terms of the control, but in terms of like how satisfied you might be with like the end product. But when you have a small publisher, it's kind of like a little bit of the worst of both worlds in the sense of like, you don't have like a $1 million ad push. Yeah. Exactly. You're not in Barnes and Noble, but at the same time, you also don't have that control. So yeah, I think that's why for me, indie made a lot of sense. Yeah.
But I will say too, like if there are aspiring authors out there wondering about it, be very aware that it's genre dependent because our readers in MM are primarily ebook readers, period. Right. And that's just a natural result of there not being a big selection of gay romance in your local bookstore. And it is getting a little bit better. So now you might go in to a big city, Barnes and Noble, and in the romance section, they may actually have one of my books that they've bought through, Amazon expanded distribution. It's kind of rare. They will have Annabeth Albert's Karina Press books. Just a couple of Dream Spinner books, maybe. Alexis Hall. And then they'll have Red, White, and Royal Blue, Call Me By Your Name. And they'll have a ton of trad, not M, it's not even really MM really, and YA. So there's a lot of good stuff in YA. So it's totally different for YA, but again,
totally different
it's a different genre. So if you are going into MM publishing, I strongly suggest consider everything. It may be different for you, but I mean, yeah, a lot of our readers are ebook readers, in which case, why go with a trad publisher? But also a lot of our readers are in KU.
Reasons. What you're trying to say is, you
don't have to. Hey, no, you guys, we're asking about you. You don't have to qualify your statements. For you guys, it made sense to do indie.
It is very well known. There are exceptions to every rule, but it is very well known that the bulk of MM readers are in Kindle Unlimited.
Gotcha. Oh, let's talk about Kindle Unlimited, because I'm super interested in this. I have used Kindle Unlimited like on and off, I would say, over the past, 2 years since I've had an e-reader. And I'm wondering how it works from the business side versus having your book for sale for like $3.99 or $5.99 or 99 cents or et cetera. Like, what's the benefit or drawback for an indie author?
I think the benefit is that when a reader has a Kindle Unlimited subscription, they don't have to pay to try your book specifically. So they're more willing to
they can try you risk-free.
Yeah, it's risk-free. And also for a lot of people, and myself included, I'm a KU reader as well as a author. I read a lot of books, like a shit ton of books. And it would be prohibitively expensive for me to be paying $7 a pop for the books. Yeah. So, so it's great. It works great that way. And I love that we get to be exposed to new readers, or they can be exposed to whatever you want to call it. Yeah. And, but I think then,
so there are pros and cons because it pays less. So I earn less on a full read through of a book than in KU than I would if I sold an ebook copy. So I earn less. However, so what you're looking at that point is volume. And you get paid by the page.
Yeah.
So
interesting.
There's a little bit of funkiness that happens because of that. There's a little bit of funkiness that happens in terms of like, do I want to write a longer book so that when I get one into the reader's hands, it's going to have a higher royalty because it has more pages. But there are a lot of other factors that go into those decisions too. The risk-free is the biggest pro. I credit my entire success. Honestly, not my entire success. I do think I know how to write a book.
Yeah.
Okay. But I don't think I would be where I am today if it weren't for KU, honestly. A lot of our readers and a lot of super fans in the romance genre as a whole, a lot of super fans or what some people call whale readers, where they're reading like a book a day. They can't afford to buy 30 books, a month full price.
Right.
So a lot of them are in KU. So basically what it means is if the bulk of your readership is KU members, they are the kind of readers who are voracious, hungry. They can read a lot, which means if you're a mid-list author, you may not make the cut if you're talking about a reader who only reads 5 books a year, but you will make the cut if it's a reader who reads 500 books a year.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting to me, like reader behavior, industry fluctuations. Like right now, we're seeing a decrease in sales and an increase in KU reads because people are looking for that budget option. So they're cutting book purchases out of their budget, but they're saying, I can at least keep $9.99 and then I'll just read whatever's in KU. But again, it is very different per genre. So don't take what we're saying as being really like, it may not be the same in cozy mystery. It may not be the same in thriller. Right. It may not be the same in sci-fi. We wouldn't know. But for gay romance, for sure, KU is a great a great option.
And then are you like, I say out loud, but like, can you have a book be Kindle Unlimited for a while and then have it be paid? Like, can you go back and forth if you choose to?
And even if your book is in Kindle Unlimited, a reader can choose to purchase it if they want to, if they want to have a forever copy of it or whatever. You're only allowed 10 slots on your Kindle Unlimited subscription. So if you
at a time.
So if you're somebody that the reader likes and knows well, then they can go ahead and purchase your book.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, we interviewed LJ Shen and we popped her podcast Sherry. We're very excited about that. And she, was kind of like telling us a little bit. I mean, because she obviously has such success on Amazon with her marketing and her books. And like you said, her readers are voracious. Like you just need that group of people who are like, the second your book drops are going to order it, or the second your pre-order is up, they're going to, request it or make sure they're in the queue of people to download. So that's
it's difficult when you're asking about, we call that cycling in and out of KU. Yeah. So it's a 90-day at a time commitment, Kindle Unlimited. And when it's in Kindle Unlimited, you can't have it for sale or distribution. Even if it's free distribution on your own website, you can't do that. So after those 90 days, you can take it out of Kindle Unlimited. It's still for sale on Amazon, but you can also put it for sale on all those wide markets, libraries, Kobo, Nook, Google Play, iBooks, all of those. The problem is and there are a lot of authors who cycle regularly, it's a big administrative headache because when you tell Kobo or any of those vendors, I need you to pull this book off because I'm going to put it back in KU. They've distributed out to a ton of different little teenier distributors
in foreign countries in many cases. And so if you go back into Kindle Unlimited and Amazon finds that your book is for sale on some random Italian retailer that you would never have thought to look for, then you're in violation of their terms of service and your account can be in jeopardy.
Deactivated. So, interesting. That must be why I see people doing like, it's free now until whatever date, and then it'll be for sale. So they don't cycle it. They just do like the one time and then.
Yeah, it's definitely easier to be in Kindle Unlimited and get out of Kindle Unlimited than it is to, they're less.
Go back.
Right, yeah.
I'm curious. Bridget and I are very curious because, we've seen all the covers of your books. And we just want to know, like, where do you find all those smoking hotties?
Because we do some research on our Instagram, where we're just looking for different people to be posting.
You need to go through the people we follow on our Instagrams, and you'll get some good stuff. We shop custom photo. You use custom for pretty much everything, unless it's a short story. But the primary photographer that we both have been using here lately, especially, is Wander Aguiar. Wander Book Club is his website. And that's good stuff. That's good stuff. But there are several, and I always if anybody ever wonders, authors, readers, whatever, on the copyright page in my books, do you do that too? We credit the photographer for the cover image. So if you ever want to see what photographer took that picture, you can find there, and then you can follow them on social media.
Do you get to go to the go to the shoots? Do you go and let me just spritz you with some water real quick. Let me just make sure you got the right amount of sheen on there.
Let me spritz you.
Do you think you could give us a discount?
Just wipe off your peck real quick.
Yeah.
I know that Wander lives in Vegas, and I know he does a lot of his shoots there, or he goes to LA and does them in Southern California. No, we haven't been there, but I know he and also several other photographers have told me that if you book a custom shoot, that they can live stream, FaceTime or Zoom with you so that during the shoot, so that you can have a say and you can describe poses and whatnot. I haven't done that. I have done a couple of custom shoots, primarily for books where we needed a couple, and the couple, which I try to avoid because it's impossible, but where we need a couple who, one guy is bigger than the other guy and one guy is, blonde, and it's just so specific. Normally I try not to have the character description done, and I will find the picture I want, and then I'll describe the character that way, because that's way easier than coming up with the character description and then trying to find a picture. Don't ever write a redhead, ever.
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 Although I did. And he's not really a redhead, but he looks kind of redheaded in the picture.
No, he is.
The guy on the fire?
Yeah.
I mean, he's
auburn.
maybe auburn.
Well, unless you have a designer who can Photoshop too.
Yeah.
Like the cover, we bought a stock photo for, no, it was custom stock. It was like premium stock for the short flakes.
Yes. Yeah.
And he's wearing a suit coat that has pinstripes and stuff. Well, that doesn't fit with our book, but the cover designer just Photoshops it all black. And now it looks like a pea coat for winter.
Oh, nice.
So there are some things you can have your designer
Another
change.
thing that we've been fortunate to do for this series is that they all are a little bit smirky, or they're like covering their mouths in some way, which was smart of us in retrospect. We'll pretend we did that on purpose. But because, it is so hard. Like they'll be perfect in every way, except they're wearing some like goofy smile. And you're like, that is the least thing ever.
Or the thing is, if you write a guy with no tattoos, every model you see has tattoos, and the wrong tattoos. Yeah. And if you write a guy who has tattoos, you cannot find, like, it's the weirdest thing.
So
it's hard.
Well, you guys do God's work.
You really do.
It's not the hardest part of our job.
I'll be at home with my like laptop up, and I'll be like going through cover images. My husband's will be like, working, are you? Actually, yes, I am.
So if you get the custom, then you can guarantee that photo won't be on any other romance novel too in that process. Because I do see a lot of the same exact guy and the same exact picture,
That's a lot cheaper. So that may cost the author $5, $20.
$50, yeah.
But what we buy is custom stock, where we're the only person who's going to get that picture,
that image.
But they may sell a similar photo from the same shoot. Hopefully it's a different pose or it's a different outfit. So it's gonna differ, kind of. It's like, and they do try to avoid, like when we bought a picture recently. They said, okay, now I know we've sold one like that recently. Let me go find it. And then he found it and sent us the picture. He said, what do you think? And we're like, oh, that's plenty different. Mm-hmm. We don't, and it was probably in MF.
It was an MF, and it was on
readers.
And a couple of years old. And
yeah.
That's cool. Do you guys choose your narrators also for the audiobooks, or do you go through like an audiobook producer?
We use the same
self-publish.
narrator, so,
yeah. Have you always used Michael? Mm-hmm. Okay. We use the same narrator.
Because of you.
Because of me.
Because of you.
Yeah. I'm a little bit, a one-trick pony on the narrator front, because it's first of all, I love Michael Dean as our narrator. Right. I love him. He's fantastic, and
when
listeners
you get
love
a
him.
good one, you don't.
But that's the thing; it ain't broke.
Yeah.
So I mean, people love really our audios; they're really, really popular, and he is a big professional. He's an actor, and he's super easy to work with. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Shani only listens to audiobooks. She doesn't read the books at all.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome.
I'm a big listener.
I am.
Honestly, I think one thing we always encourage, I know it's expensive, but we're always like telling indie authors, like, there are so many people like Shani, like we won't review a book on the podcast that doesn't have audio, because she won't read the book.
Yeah. So. We're at a retreat with other authors here, and we have been talking a lot about audio because a couple of people have gotten into it since we were all together like 18 months ago. And so we've been talking a lot about audio, and there's still a few people who it's a very big investment.
It's a huge,
so we have
like
some
at least
$3,000 for a full length
to put a book in audio.
No. And I will tell you why. So the reason I got into actually producing audiobooks, and I produced them for about 5 years, but the reason that happened was because I read a terrible like audiobook. Like somebody read it and I was like, oh my God, somebody is out there on their iPhone. They just recorded this book into the iPhone and then they published it. And this was on Audible. And I was like, that's crazy. How did this get on Audible? So I started backtracking, and I found this website called ACX, where you could go on there and there's narrators and there's authors, and you can say like, hey, I can do your book, and you submit an audition or that sort of thing, and an author can pick you, or they can put a listing and that sort of thing. And then you can get your book made for free up front and do a 50% revenue share.
A royalty
Well, we
share.
use ACA.
That's what we use. Of that thing.
Yeah.
And then it didn't, some people won't want to pay a flat fee so that, they're not giving away money from their book. But if you don't have that in your first books, you could do just a 50% royalty share.
It's kind of a thing of like some of the authors that have like a big following in because a lot of people will actually find a new author to them because they like, for example, Michael Dean, and they'll be like, oh, Michael Dean wrote, narrated for this author. I'm gonna check that one out too.
Just because I like to listen to his voice.
Exactly. I like him telling stories in my ear. So if you want to have like a narrator that has a following that's going to bring that, a lot of them don't do the royalty share because, and I get it.
Well-known names don't do royalty
I get it because there's a risk inherent in that. If you don't sell, they don't sell, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they want to get paid up front and they want to do the per finished hour flat fee kind of deal. So
it's not easy to find a royalty share author. It's not easy. I mean, narrator. It's not easy to find a narrator who does LGBT.
That's
and it's not easy to find a narrator who does royalty share. Mm-hmm. And when you add those two things together,
why wouldn't they do LGBT?
Well, and you go back to the cover images thing.
Yeah, there are models who won't.
There
allow
are
their
models
books
who
to
don't want to be on a gay romance.
So whenever
cover.
not from Wander, because we know he's fine, but there are some photographers who, when you say, okay, I would like to buy this image from you for a cover, and they find out it's for a gay romance, they're like, sorry, the model's not okay with that.
Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness. I'm going to send you a photographer that we follow. You guys might already know about him, but he takes just delicious photos.
Ooh.
Some are really expensive.
Kevin Roldan.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. His photos are to die for.
Too rich. Remember.
Is he in France? Is he the one who's in France?
LA?
Okay.
Or maybe he's just sometimes in LA. I mean, photographers are always here sometimes.
Goujon is the French one. No, okay.
I think he's in LA or Vegas.
Guy with dark hair. Yeah.
His photos, I'm like, stop and come over to my house.
Do you follow Wander?
No, but I will now.
He sells a lot of images in MF too. I mean, you'll start to recognize his style.
Yeah.
It's not, I mean, like, it's weird because you say like people don't want to be on gay romance novel. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense that exists. But like, I didn't even think about it because once we started producing, we were working with different narrators and that sort of thing. I mean, people just wanted money. So it's like, if we were paying, they were reading, and the thing about it too is that nobody had to use their real name in real life. Like for their, what I mean? So
that's true.
And we were only doing revenue splits, but we did do a lot of research ahead of time to see how much that author was selling, how good their books were doing, if it was worth it to do a book with that author.
Yeah. And I do think some of the people who have proven sales numbers like that can make a case that will make it more likely for somebody to take a chance on them. But if you don't have that, and when you go into royalty share, at least right now in our genre, you tend to get, and there are exceptions, but you tend to get a lot of people who they haven't really narrated many books yet.
You don't have a following.
But they don't have references. Like you don't know any authors who've used them to know if they actually meet their deadlines, if they turn in quality work, do they have the right equipment? Because it's really expensive, to have some of the right stuff. So there's just a lot more risk involved.
Totally.
How did you guys, obviously Kindle Unlimited was a big part of it, you said already, but how did you guys build up your fan bases as you were going through the indie author journey?
I think one of the things that people don't realize about gay romance, and it depends on who listens to your podcast as to whether if it's more readers or authors, but
it's more readers. Primarily.
It's building your readership in MM, I would say, is very different than MF does a lot of advertising. Yeah. We don't do a lot of advertising. It's a small enough genre. It's changing now and we're doing more, but it's a small enough genre. It's very, very active on Facebook.
There's a community.
It's a big community. A lot of reader groups. There's a huge Facebook group called MM Book Rec, which is one of those places you can go and say, I read a book about a guy who was in a purple shirt and he met this other guy who was walking a poodle and everyone's like, oh, that's this book. It's a great group. And And so word of mouth is a
huge.
biggie.
And so buzz, if there's buzz in the community about a book, that's pretty good. Also, a lot of authors are very, and I think this is true in MF too, to an extent, but like they definitely promote newer authors that they enjoy.
We try and lift new debut authors up, sharing their work, giving them opportunities to join group promotions, inviting them into author spaces where those kinds of things are discussed and talked about. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And Lucy ran an author education event this year.
And also, so I would say, so I made 6 figures before spending more than $15 on marketing, which is an outlier, but it is possible in some of the different niches and genres to, if you aren't starting with a ton of money, and you really have only enough money for a professional cover and professional editing. Which are definitely non-negotiable. And it just takes more grind, and getting out there and participating in groups and finding where the readers are, and then being smart about your marketing. So one of the things we were talking about this earlier today here, we are huge proponents of newsletter magnets, which is sign up for my newsletter and get a free bonus short story or a free bonus scene. So if you've just written a book about Bill and Ted, and you want to see 5 years down the road when Bill and Ted have adopted a kid and are, getting into trouble with somebody spilled, breakfast all over the kitchen, and it's just a cute, funny, short scene. You can get it for free if you sign up for my newsletter.
That was one of the first things I did. My first romance, I had a newsletter builder bonus epilogue, and I got a lot of subscribers that way. And then definitely like the number one way that I have gotten subscribers after that is to do other newsletter builder freebie story giveaways. That's where I've gotten a ton of them.
We're planning one for January, a huge Prolific Works free short story giveaway.
So any of your readers, definitely come and follow us on Facebook, because if you're into stories,
there's going to be a ton.
Hundreds. Literally, it's the
January
biggest one I've ever been a part of.
For 10 days, it's going to be over 200 authors offering free short stories.
Okay, we'll definitely link to that.
And a lot of them have said, because we're all in a private group arranging and organizing, and a lot of them are like, it was supposed to be a short story, but it's a 35,000 word novella. And so there's going to be some good stuff.
And that's going to be us. And we try to lie and say that it's not us, but it's 100% going to be us. I told her yesterday that the first chapter of this story was going to be
super short.
Did I say?
1,800
words. It came in at like 2,800. So, it's like the same thing.
That's okay. I started writing on it today and I only got 600 words so far. So I'll make up for it on my chapter.
I can't believe you write books in like 5 weeks. That's awesome. But like, how many words do you have a set sort of, I want to try and do this many words a day or this many hours a day or this many hours a week? Like, how do you guys typically write? Obviously, I know COVID's crazy, but just in general.
There's a difference between what our plan is and what reality is. Our plan is we're in an accountability sprint group.
Where we have our goal, our daily goal written right next to
our
name.
username. Yep. And
so mine says May 3K a day.
Yeah. And mine is Lucy 3K a day. So we would like to write 3K a day. That would be a great solid day. It's not outrageous to think that we could write 3,000 words in a day at all. But it is a good solid day. Like, what would you, so I can write anywhere from 800 to 1,100 words in a focused hour sprint. And a sprint means no distractions, no internet, no phone calls, no.
I'm a little slower because I'm an editor and I'm a tinkerer and I tend to have pretty solid my first drafts are pretty close
ready to go.
They're pretty clean. I write clean. So I would say I'm more like in the 600 to 800 range per hour.
Yeah.
So, but it's our full-time job. It's both of our full-time jobs. So what we do in this group is we call them power hours. And so we'll say, okay, we're starting at the top of the hour. We're going to go to the 55 minutes after, and then we'll take a 5-minute break. Yeah. And so for those 55 minutes, we also know, because there's a bunch of us in there, we also know if we see each other on Facebook during the 55 minutes, somebody's doing something they're not supposed to be doing. So we'll have messages all the time. This is an automated response. You're not actually seeing me here, But that's our goal.
Yep. That's awesome. How have you, because Lucy, you said you've been doing this for 4 years. And May, how long have you been writing?
So I started publishing MF in 2016. So like 4.5 years.
4 years. Okay.
And I published my first MM in 2017. So we in a bit.
And you've both been able to like replace your full-time incomes from whatever else you were doing. And if you were working, no judgment here, dude. Me and Shani, our life goal is to be, we both have, I'm married, but we both have sugar partners who support all of our creative endeavors as we are building our businesses. So no sweat.
Most recently, before I started writing, I was a stay-at-home mom. So I wasn't bringing in any income. My friend Jane and I, Jane Henry, who's also a romance writer in MF, we started out saying to each other, imagine if we could make like $500 a month.
They were couponers.
We were, oh my God, because one of the things we shared would be like, I went to CVS today, got all the extra care buck deals and, anyway, and we used to co-write together and we would plot in like the middle of the grocery store while we were couponing for cereal boxes and crap. But anyway, so we would be like, imagine if we could make $500 a month. That could get our family on vacation for the year. Boom. And now, it's pretty amazing.
It's a little more than that.
It's a little more than $500 a month now. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I started thinking, I have 3 teenagers and I started thinking about, okay, in the next few years, we're going to have 3 kids going to college, theoretically, hopefully.
I love that you were going to put your family through college. And I was like, I can go to Disney World.
No, I just wanted to contribute. So I was also a stay-at-home mom. I ran a tiny little quilting company. I was a pattern designer for a quilting company, which is very different from writing gay sex.
Yes.
But I just thought if I could just earn, same thing, if I could earn a couple $100 a month and put it away for college, that would be great. And I only started 4 years ago and I am paying off our house, our mortgage for Christmas for my husband.
Yeah.
It's been unbelievable.
That is amazing.
It is amazing.
That is so, you guys are dope. We like you. This is exciting. This is very exciting. Do you guys?
Everyone's like, you do that with gay romance? We're like, you guys don't understand how many of us are reading gay romance.
I know we are. So I also want to ask about, because we also have like Patreon. We come from like a sort of YouTube production background where like you sell merch. It's just like part of the thing. You just do all of the things. Do you guys do other stuff or do you just focus on like publishing as many books as possible?
I mean, we have to advertise as well. So like Facebook ads, Amazon ads, BookBub ads, all of that good stuff as well. So we definitely focus on that. But in terms of like merch, not me personally, I know some authors in our genre do, and definitely same with Patreon. If I can get the words on the book, that's an amazing day. Even in non-COVID times, it's great. I would rather focus on that, but God bless the people who can do that for Patreon, because definitely some people can do that too.
Yeah, I don't do those. For me, whenever I start thinking about it, because we were at Romance Author Mastermind last year and Willow Winters did a presentation on merch and stuff. Yeah. And she loves it. It's totally up her alley. But when I start thinking about, should I be doing that? I think about how much money I can make releasing another book instead. Mm-hmm. And it's no question about which makes the most sense for my family.
Yeah.
So, because I've actually thought about starting a podcast for authors, and whenever I start to go down that road, I'm like,
it's a lot of time.
That's a lot of time.
As a podcaster, I can tell you right now, it's a lot of time.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think it's like where your passion lies. So if you had a passion for merch and you were like super jazzed about that, you would make the time.
Well, and I put on this author education conference in April, which of course ended up having to go virtual. But I come from a background, my background is corporate marketing, corporate event marketing. So I used to do trade shows and sales seminars and conferences. So even when I became a stay-at-home mom and then I started my quilting business, I got super into Instagram with my quilting and built up a community there. I started a quilting retreat, a really big quilting retreat with sponsors and all this other stuff. So like events are my thing. I love planning events. I love getting people together. I mean, here we are doing this for the same reason. So I definitely agree that like, if it's your passion, I mean, doing that author education conference this year, I did that because I have a passion for authors helping other authors. Mm-hmm. And for us always striving to be better at our jobs and better at what we do and writing better books. So it's definitely not all about money and all that kind of stuff. But I do agree.
Mentor.
I do agree. You gotta, it's better if you have a passion for it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the only reason we're doing this. So I'll tell you a fun story about me and Johnny. So it sounds actually about how you guys, when you were talking about how we're just going to do one little thing, we're just going to do one quick thing. So we met and became friends through mutual friends. And it was like, oh, we're just going to pitch one little project. And then Shawnee was like, I'm going to come over. Let's make this vampire Christmas video. And I was like, that sounds awesome. Let's make your next music video. I'll direct that because you directed me. Let's do this new series where we're Valkyries. And then it was like, oh, you read romance novels? I read romance novels. And we talked about it for a few hours. And she called me that night and was like, here's my 10-part plan about why we should start a romance novel podcast. And
Amazing.
I was like, I don't even need to be convinced, dude. Like, sign me up.
You took the time to come up with it.
I know.
I said, Bridget, wait, let me tell you. She was like, no, I'm in. I was like, but I have 10 points.
You stop at the yes. When you get the yes, you stop selling.
Yeah. And then, and then we,
I think it's really awesome though, that you guys are mentoring and really like helping people along the journey, because, I mean, I think about how many times like as like content creators and that Bridget and I are, there's been so many people along the way who are so giving with their knowledge, and which I think is the number one thing you can give anybody. The best gift you can give anybody is knowledge. And then there was people who definitely did not want you to be in their competition or like, in their niche or whatever it was. And so it's for me, very just heartwarming to know that you're like, there's space for everybody. There's room for everybody. Helping people along is not going to change your success and where you lie in the, in that romance world. So,
I mean, the readers are so voracious. There's I couldn't pause. If I tried to keep them all for myself especially in the COVID times, if I tried to keep them all for myself, I couldn't keep them satisfied. There's no way.
No.
There's literally no way.
No, so, I mean, I was just telling Shawnee, I was like, I've had a really slow reading month. I've already read like 11 books.
Yeah.
Such a slow reading month for me.
Right.
I was like, I feel like I haven't even read at all. Like normally before an interview, I like booked this crazy other side. Like I have a consulting business and all this other stuff, but I booked this other job, which has absorbed all of my time in the last week. And I was like, normally I would have read probably, 3 or 4 of each of your books just to like, have it all fresh in the brain. And I was like, I've only read 1. It's like, who am I? Who am I?
Honestly, that's why I said, Bridget. I said, Bridget, you got to get it together. Because Bridget, if you wrote a series, like Bridget will have read that entire series. Like she won't just read the first one. She will read them all.
She just posted a picture in her reader group the other day. Total bragging picture, by the way, of her Kindle Streak.
Oh, my Kindle Streak.
It's big. Very fucking proud of her Kindle Streak.
And I even had the flu in January, which really surprised me.
What's a Kindle Streak?
Yeah.
On your Kindle. Oh, you can see mine is. It's been a bad time, okay? But it tells you how many days and weeks in a row you've read.
Oh, okay.
I keep track. This is a bad thing. It's bad.
It's addicting. I bet you it's addicting.
It's so addicting.
I didn't even know this exists. I'm going to look on my Kindle right now.
All right, ready?
Oh man, now you guys have got Bridget.
Whoa.
Look at that.
She's read. You guys, she has read 628 days in a row. Whoa. 118 weeks in a row though, right?
That's almost 2 years.
Yeah. But there was, there were days in there. Yes.
But so I posted it in my reader group. I'm like, I live in fear of this. I didn't know this was a thing until recently. And so I had no idea that it was an everyday, like that I had built up those numbers. And now I'm like, what happens if I just lose track of time? And I read myself to sleep at night. So I'm like, what happens if I don't get to bed till after midnight? And then, like, what do I do?
Do you guys only read on Kindle or do you ever read? Because I'm a big public library person. So
My
I
sister
read
is a library person.
a ton of books on obviously Kindle, but also Kindle Unlimited now and through the public library on Kindle.
Yeah.
And then I also, before COVID, my close by public library is still closed, unfortunately. But before COVID, I would be, just dump myself a nice big stack and I would waddle myself home the block from my library.
Yeah, I don't actually read much many
Hard
paper
copies.
books anymore.
Yeah, I don't read hard
What do we
copies.
call those again? Book books? Yeah.
Book books?
I don't either. I can't read them as well because I can't turn the font size up on those
there's
things.
that too. Also, I have to keep.
See, you're younger. You're younger.
See, Bridget? See, I'm not the only one. I can't track. The reason I only do audiobooks is because I can't track on the page anymore. It's crazy.
We have a lot of listener fans who that they're exclusive to audio too, and it kills us. In fact, one of the things that we are trying to do for this coming year is do Audible pre-orders so that our listeners know exactly when that audio is coming out and it's coming out at the same time. Right now there's still a delay.
Ideally.
Yeah, we're trying. It's working with ACX on that is a learning curve. But we're going to try and do that because it kills us when we have a new release like yesterday and all of our listeners don't have, everyone's talking about it and everyone's all excited. And for them, it's going to be a couple of weeks.
Or like 4 months.
It's bad this year. It's really bad this year.
Yeah, I was going to say, if it's a couple weeks, it's like, it's sad when it's, or just like doesn't exist at all. Like we said, I'm so happy you guys do it because I was like, as I was picking out all these books, we had Shawnee didn't know anything about any of the books I picked, but I had about 10 books that I also was very excited about. And I was trying to I had 10 spots and I was like, how am I going to fit them all in? And then I went through and like 7 of them didn't have audio. So I was like, well, those are out. And, it's too bad because, people really liked them and they sounded good. And, I mean, you guys got me with your description. It was like pushed them up against the barn door. And I was like, yeah, he did. Yeah, he did.
But I think it's also about accessibility. One of the things that Bridget and I have been talking about a lot recently, and even when we had our YouTube channels, it's about how to make things accessible to people with, disabilities or that sort of thing. So like having it on audio also is not just for people who are having a hard time reading or are working while they're listening to a book, but people who it's
legitimately don't have.
I
follow Carson Tuller. How do you pronounce his last name? I think it's Tuller on Instagram, and he's a gay male disabled advocate, big educator, just an amazing human being. He's adorable.
Sweet potato, yeah.
Total sweet potato. And but he has really opened my eyes to paying more attention, being more conscious of those areas, because just little things like I follow him on Instagram. And so when he does Instagram stories, having the captioning, same thing with, I think, Niall DeMarco, who's deaf. I follow him also.
Follow him.
Yeah. He is really cute, really cute. But yeah, you don't know what you don't know. I say that a lot, but it's true.
Yeah.
You have to be aware of what, other people's experiences and.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. You guys, this has been, what a delight. What a delightful day. This is so fun. First of all, we would like to be best friends with you guys because
we have openings.
This has been so fun. We just love talking about books and romance. I also appreciate your candor because a lot of people are very tight-lipped about how much money they earn, and we are very pro women, especially saying no, I earn this much money and I'm a badass and you can earn money. And I think that sort of helps people understand the space, understand what's possible. Both of you guys went into it being I can maybe make $500 a month. My mom is working with this guy. She is not an author in that space, and she's like, well, I'm hoping I can make $1,000 a month. And I was like, Mom, I want you to go to this guy who's helping you, who makes millions of dollars a year, and tell him how much money you want to make. And she goes, he laughed in my face. And I was like, yeah, because I told you can make $100,000 a month, Mom. Your niche is specific, and I think it's great. Women,
I agree.
I want everybody to reach for the stars.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. But I think, for us, we've talked a lot about this, it is it's still work. I don't want that's why we're really careful, when we sort of talk about the money, because you can make there are a lot of authors making life-changing. I make life-changing money. I never expected to make this much money. I never expected to even make more than my husband or anything like that. Like it's crazy money, but I work really hard, hard. We work from home. We set our alarm. We don't live anywhere near each other at all. But we set our alarms for 6:45 in the morning, and we meet each other online at 7. And we're still talking to each other at 11 o'clock at night, a lot of nights.
And we do.
I take a few hour nap in the middle of the day.
Yeah. And I have kids that are homeschooling and dinner.
Yeah.
Things. Yeah.
It's not the only thing we do, but we do work very hard at it. And I think
that's the thing is, as you know, when you work from home and when you work for yourself, there's really not a time when there's never a time when you are going to not be available.
Yeah,
so
sure.
I think we actually we maybe struggle a little bit on the other side of needing to draw some work-life boundaries. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
Well,
you're trying. I'm not even trying. She's like, I'm going to take Sundays off. I'm like, really?
What do I do?
I'll see you on Sunday.
I talk about taking Sundays off, and I'm like, well, I didn't earn it this week.
I know.
And then I have friends.
That's the thing. That's the thing about taking the day off. You can't put it so that you have to earn it.
Friends send me memes that are like, rest doesn't have to be earned, and I'm like, yeah, I guess.
That's one thing about COVID that I feel like we've been able to produce a lot more stuff is like there's no like events you have to go to. There's no weekend plans. There's no.
And we had travel. We had a lot of conferences.
Yeah, we did too. And
that's
everything was canceled.
Books out.
I'm happy to stay home and focus. Yeah. I only see Bridget. I was like, I don't see anybody. I see Bridget.
We were just talking about that today and about how much better I think it's been, or easier it's been for us. And I shouldn't speak for all authors, but for us, maybe particularly.
Our lives didn't change that
much. And so many of our friends are online already. So those relationships haven't changed. It's not like we were going into an office and getting like an interaction that we're not getting anymore and that kind of thing. So
we both agree 100% because we both work from home primarily or with each other primarily, versus our partners who worked in offices or in studios with all these other people, and they are like going batshit crazy, and we're like, well, it's not that bad. I'm still at home in my pajamas, just like I always was.
For me, the only thing, and it didn't happen until I got back from Florida. I was actually spent most of COVID in Florida with my parents, but it's that I'm used to being home by myself. And then when you have somebody who's home with you, and we live in a tiny apartment, like a studio. So it's only one room. Then it was like, what are you doing here? Why are you here all day? Don't you have somewhere to be? Don't you have somewhere to go?
I keep telling her, I'm like, just come to my house. I have more than one room. You can have your own
little
room.
Kids though. Nobody wants that.
They're at daycare. Those fools are at daycare.
My husband was off for a while. His company was paying him to stay home for a couple of months, which is amazing. But then he'd be like all up in my business, like, what do you want to do for lunch? And I was
so this is why, you know what? Don't beat yourself. Now I know why you didn't write as many books.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because you had kids homeschooling, and those mofos always want a snack. They always want to talk to you. I ask you a question. You don't need to talk to me. I'm working. Go away from here.
About this. The most trivial stuff too.
About my
Did
daughter.
You know that the cat has 4 legs?
Hey mom, watch this cool jump. I'm like, I don't watch you jump.
Mine are older, so it's more like TikToks coming into my text, into the group text, or like my daughter will be incensed. I'm filled with non-specific rage. She's 16, right? So that's what she says this stuff all the time. So she's like, I'm filled with non-specific rage about like whatever her thing of the day is, like whether it's a political thing or some Hamilton remix that she's or a book that she's read or a K-drama. And then she will recount to me every detail.
Shawnee loves K-dramas.
that's great when you've watched them. But to like hear them
I'm with you. I'm like, every time she talks about them, I'm like, that's really cool.
K-dramas are so melodramatic. They're so melodramatic. There's no way you can recount them because nothing happens in them.
But like
nothing happens.
You'll even do the faces for me. And it's like, I don't get it.
I also, because you made a comment about dinner earlier, and I was like, oh, that hits so hard because dinner comes every day, and every day you have to figure out what everyone's eating.
Those losers have just eaten and they need to eat again.
I mean, my kids are home, and so the 5 of us, 3 meals a day.
It's horrible. It's horrible.
Again, I would say if you look at our budget this year, we have spent more money on DoorDash and Uber Eats.
Instacart.
I mean, I could have put a kid through college probably for what we've been paying for.
I can't. When I think about
Instacart, forget Instacart. That's obscene.
I spend as much in one Instacart as I used to spend in a month of groceries, and that's the damn truth. It's like,
I asked my, I don't have any kids, thank God, praise be. But so this last year, Bridget's been on this journey with me. I decided I was going to take a year to decide, like really decide, do I want kids? Really think about it, whatever, because I'm getting to the older end of the spectrum in terms of that. And so I've just been asking everybody about their thing, like what, do you like having kids? What's this? If you could do it over, what would you do? This sort of thing. And I asked my sister, and she said basically what you guys just said. She's like, I love being a mom. There's some juggling things that are weird, but you figure it out. But she's like, the dinner, I gotta make that shit I gotta feed that kid. Every day. Bridget's like, it's not 3 meals a day. It's like 3 meals, 4 snacks.
And there's no days off from feeding kids.
They have to eat all the time. And mine are so little, they can't do anything. They can't even get their own snacks yet.
Wait till they learn how to work the microwave. That's like the best thing ever.
Wait till they can install the Instacart app on their phones. And then you've got Instacart deliveries showing up of like Pringles, because like,
that's funny. I tell, I mean, I think the hardest part right now is like, I would be at home and they would be at daycare. Oh, the older one. And then I had the little one who was at home for a long time before she started daycare. But my husband being at home at lunchtime has been a real killer because I used to just open the fridge and whatever leftovers were there, I would throw on top of lettuce and that would be a salad. Didn't matter what the leftovers were. Fried chicken, that's a salad. Pasta, that's a salad. Didn't matter. And my husband would be like, well, what are we going to eat? Are we going to order out? Are we going to go somewhere?
It's lunch with a capital L.
Are we going to make something? I'm like, okay, when you say we, is that a royal we?
Happy to eat whatever you want to make, honey.
Yeah,
that's what I tell them. And I finally, like midway through COVID this summer, because LA has been like super locked down the whole time. Midway through, I was like, when the kids are at daycare, I'm not responsible for anyone's food. I don't want to be asked. If you want to order food and you want to say, hey, Bridget, I'm ordering tacos. Do you want tacos? That is an okay question. Otherwise, I don't want to be involved in your food. I don't want to be involved in whatever you're talking. I don't want to think through it. I will find my own shit. You deal with yourself. Please don't involve. Because like the mental, like, I'm trying to remember which vegetables your kids have eaten that day.
He starts by texting me at like 11. What are we doing for lunch today?
Yeah, and then brutal. Like, you decide. Make a choice.
I don't know. And then at like 11:45, you never answered me. And then at like 12, well, I'm on a call for another 30 minutes. Do you want to do something at 12:30? And then at 12:30, why aren't you ready? Do you have your shoes on? And I'm like, I could have just had like
Tostitos.
I was going to say Pop-Tart. And then I'm like, that does not set a good example.
I mean, I'm being real.
You know the reality.
It's very accurate.
I could have just opened a can of soup from the closet. I didn't need to go anywhere.
Made one of your little salads.
Let's pretend we eat salad and soup. Maybe if we lived in Los Angeles.
If it's a bread plus cheese product.
Did you catch that my salad was just lettuce with leftovers?
You at least had the lettuce.
Iceberg.
That's what I always tell them at Chipotle, like after they make the bowl and they get to the lettuce, I go, put like a tiny bit of lettuce so I can feel like I'm being healthy.
Sprinkle it on top. Sprinkle it on top.
Treat it like croutons, really.
Yeah. Lettuce bay.
Oh my gosh, you guys, Lucy, May, thank you so much for being on the podcast. This was so fun. I feel like we should all be best friends.
Thank you.
And get together in non-COVID times. And of course, be in touch about some delicious mail romance.
This has been so fun. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening.
Subscribe to our channel to get new episodes, clips, and more.
And click here to watch our previous reviews and author interviews.